All right, you are now live, and I'm just going to start the recording as well.
Cool.
Meeting is being recorded.
Great. Thank you. So I'll call this meeting to order at 4:07 p.m. and start with the Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. We'll start with our standard roll call and AV check. When I call your name, I'll ask that each member ensure that your video and microphone is working. So I'll just go ahead through the list. Councillor Trish Purdy.
I am here.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Saint-Amand.
I'm here as well.
Thank you. Kathy Stevenson.
I'm here.
Thank you. Glenn Babcock.
I'm eating some peanuts. I hope nobody's allergic.
Thank you, Glenn. Anne Sinclair.
Hi, everyone. I'm here.
Great, thank you. I know we had regrets from Jamil. Oliver Keith.
Yep, I'm here.
Thank you. Celine Bautour.
I'm here.
Thank you. We had regrets from Nick Harris and Rochelle Manette, me. I am here, which we all probably know. And then we also had regrets from Councillor Laura White. So and I guess I saw that Councillor Purdy has to leave at 5:30. So we'll make sure that you get to say the things you need to say by then. Also, I have a hard out today at 6 p.m. So we're going to be like on time, hopefully. That'll be my job, I guess. Anyways, moving on to the approval of minutes, I will now ask if there are any errors or omissions for the minutes of February 23rd, 2026. If there are none, I will invite a member to move the following motion that the minutes of February 23rd, 2026 of the Accessibility Advisory Committee meeting be approved as presented.
So moved.
Thank you, Jean Saint-Amand. And a seconder.
I'll second. It's Anne.
Oh, thank you, Anne. Okay. So I will call for the question. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Great. Thank you. All those opposed say nay or raise your hand. Seeing none, the motion has been carried. We'll now move on to the approval of the order of business for today's meeting. To our legislative assistant, are there any changes to today's agenda?
There are no additions or deletions from the clerk's office.
Great, thank you. So I will invite a member of the committee to move the following motion that the agenda be approved as presented. I see your hand, Celine. All right, we'll go with moved by Celine and seconded by Jean Saint-Amand. Great. Okay, I will call for the question. All those in favor say aye or raise hands.
Aye.
Great, thank you. All opposed say nay or raise hands. Seeing none, motion carried. Great. Moving on, there's no business arising out of the minutes, so we'll go to call for declaration of conflict of interest. Does anybody have a conflict of interest to declare as a result of an item on today's agenda? Seeing none, and I figured there would probably be none. So we will move on. There's no consideration of deferred business. For correspondence to our clerk, has any correspondence been received?
No correspondence has been received.
Great. And are there any petitions to be presented?
No petitions have been received by the clerk's office.
Thank you. No presentations, no information items brought forward. So we're moving on to pretty much the bulk of our meeting now and reports and discussions. So we're starting off with a big, heavy conversation. We're going to talk about the 2026 work plan, which we've delayed a couple of times now. So I'm very excited and very antsy to get talking about this. You all should have access to a blank document. We're not gonna fill it out today. We're really just gonna have a discussion and try to pinpoint some like major themes. Elizabeth is going to take notes and, as she always does, and then sort of try to hopefully, and I know in the past we've like lumped things together to try to make sure that everyone's kind of points and voices have been heard and are part of the work plan. And then for next meeting, we'll have access to a draft work plan that we can talk more about and then vote on in the following meeting in April. So, I'm going to go through the speakers list like we normally do. I might jump in to ask like clarifying questions or try to like summarize things, mainly for Elizabeth, but I'm also making an effort. Like, I don't want to be interrupting people because I also am on the speakers list. So like, I won't say my own thought until it's my turn, but I will just like clarify or summarize when necessary. So first on the speaking list is Celine Vautour.
All right, hello. So for the work plan, I did have a few considerations, and some of it too is like things that we were bringing up at the previous work plan and what I'd like to strengthen for the next one. Anyway, okay, so I'll break it down to about like 4 things. The first thing would be like exploring snow removal again, but like also particularly snow removal at bus stops, because there's also this kind of debate, and I've had conversations with someone that works as a bus driver, and even themselves like were like, why can't it be transit that operates that part? Because again, how many times, especially this winter, you're trying to get off the bus and you are falling into a very tall snowbank. I don't think it's accessible. I understand at the front they've been removing 2 meters, but yet I think it should be up to 10 meters, if not more. If they can take a tape measurement from start to end from the back door, let's get a clue, guys. So the other thing that I wanted to bring up too is what was brought up when we were talking about infractions for construction sites, like to have access on paths. Kind of, and it's not just about that, but about exploring stricter infractions for accessibility related violations. Like I find that we don't, it just seems like the violations are so small that a lot of construction companies or other organizations that have like a liability, they don't really necessarily deliver on what is the bylaw because they know that they can pay it and they don't have to care as much. So it's like something that I think that I actually want to read it. So like current penalties often fail to drive meaningful compliance, leaving residents with disabilities at a disadvantage. We need stronger enforceable consequences to ensure accountability, safety, and equitable access to public spaces and services. Clear words. Anyway, the other thing too, sorry, I gotta plug in my computer. The other thing too, and this is what I've been trying to kind of explain for the last while, because I always talk about services within the HRM, but I think we should explore how we can come up with mandatory vetting and reporting for funded organizations. And I'm going to read this because, again, I always have trouble organizing myself in this stuff. And I just want to make sure that I can give you guys clearer information. So municipalities should have clear vetting processes before funding and endorsing organizations and I mean organizations that are helping people that are trying to avoid homelessness, that need social care, trying to navigate that within the HRM. And I've also been a service user. I can tell you right now, there are many organizations that should require more vetting than that. The reasons for too that we are vetting for financial accountability, audit, transparent reporting. This one's very important. In equity and inclusion policies, anti-discrimination measures. I am going to vouch as somebody who has been a service user, but now as a support worker, a lot of what I'm seeing is that there's still a lot of organizations that run on biases that are often tied to religion. And I find that kind of prevents a lot of people that tend to be from equity-seeking groups not wanting to access these services out of a sense of unsafety. Like there's no safety in coming to these places, especially when they have to identify their information with these people, and sometimes it's volunteer. So it's like when you're seeking help, you're giving an incredible amount of trust and also an incredible amount of your own confidentiality. That there, I'm going to die on this hill for that one. Evidence of capacity to deliver services reliably, because that is something that I feel exactly why I'm pressing that the municipality doesn't endorse or help fund organizations that are not really proving the data of their services. Like, we're really taking their word for it. And I really believe that we need to stop. So without verification, funding can unintentionally prop up organizations that discriminate or fail to deliver, harming vulnerable residents, as I said previously. And the other stuff I want to add is, and exploiting the vulnerable people, because that happens. And also low key, there's been trafficking. So I'm just saying that. I'm not saying when, where, what, but I'm just saying this is what I've been witness to. Municipalities must confirm that funded organizations operate transparently, serve everyone fairly, and can actually deliver the services they promise. Now, how this could be written or interpreted in the work plan, I understand may have its complexity, but again, I'm back here next April. Maybe I'll have something a little better. Now, the one thing that I want to take my time, how much time do I have though, Rochelle? Because I don't want to overtake my time.
I guess maybe take like another minute and then we'll go back around afterwards.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
if you have more to say, we can do
works.
that too. Okay.
Perfect. That works, because again, this was something that I've brought up in the past and I had a lot of trouble being able to break that down into clearer language. So the one thing that I also feel that the work plan needs is developing, looking to advocate for developing and improve Halifax transit information tables and stuff, because number one, there's no visual hierarchy to be able to identify like major hubs or neighborhood connections. Like, a lot of what it is like fragmented perspectives. Like, you have to read multiple pages or sections to figure out which routes connect where you are. There's also something too for cognitive disabilities that can be of all range, autism, memory issues, where riders must scan dense tables to find their start, destination, and transfer points, which can be stressful for anyone, especially new users or those, like I was saying, with cognitive disability. So it's like there's a lack of a mental map. Like, there's not a visual scan as we can see in other cities, especially for metro stations. Like, I find that there is a possibility. In fact, I was actually seeing something in AI and I was like, this is good, but it needs to be worked on a little better. So again, I might be able to come in next month to elaborate a little further. So that is something else I want to add to the work plan. And I'm going to leave it to everybody else because I did probably overspeak. And I'll break it down from this one in particular, because I think this one is like my baby right now. I'd like to see this happen.
Cool.
Off to you,
Thank
Rochelle.
Thanks, Celine. Yeah, I also took a few notes just to see if I can also cross-reference things as we're going through the list and if there's some themes coming up. So thank you. Next on the list is Councillor Trish Purdy.
Thank you. Okay, so I have an overlapping one with Celine. Construct site accessibility, enforcement and fines, and making sure that its compliance is enforced. So that's one I think is really important. And the other one is parking, accessible parking. Enforcement of accessible parking, but also with the policy changes in HRM, we're losing parking, on-street parking and on-street accessible parking. So making sure that we have a balance and one priority isn't overshadowing and overtaking another priority like accessible parking, and how that does need to remain a priority in our municipality. So those were two I thought of.
Thank you. That's great. Yeah, I mean, I'm always down for more accessible parking and making sure that, I imagine more people who are not supposed to will park in accessible parking if they can't find a spot that they want when there's more. So probably, I feel like enforcement maybe is going to come up a lot because there are lots of rules. They're just not always followed. Okay, next up is Councillor Jean Saint-Amand.
Well, first of all, Celine, great idea. Information design is something that I spent a lot of time on in my career, and so I know how that's a major barrier for a lot of information that winds up being presented. And the accessibility of that information in the information design absolutely winds up playing a role in how useful it is in providing safety for the users. So I think that's a great focus for us to have. And it's the sort of thing that we could institute not only in transit, but just across the board. If there are accepted principles of information design that we can ensure are reflected in how we communicate as a municipality, then I think it would be really worthwhile having those conversations, and you'll be a very strong advocate in that particular area. I think one of the things that I'm most interested in seeing us address is, I think the idea of ongoing accessibility challenges in transit, I think will wind up being a fairly significant focus as we try to increase the availability of transit in the municipality. The accelerated institution of the Halifax Transit Core Service Plan will wind up playing a role there, because as we try to improve routes and make routes more accessible and serve more communities more effectively and more reliably, a big part of that is the accessibility of those routes as well. And so whatever we can do to address stops that aren't accessible, certainly to Celine's point, looking at ways that we can ensure that during winter operations, every opportunity is taken to try to ensure that the bus stop is accessible, not just for entry, but for exit as well. I think that winds up being a big factor. And I've heard that from a number of people where, they're kind of mountain goating themselves over top of a snowbank in order to get off. And while the operators will commonly provide instruction to the passengers to come up to the front in order to exit if they have that specific concern, not everybody's able to do that. It kind of depends on how busy the bus is. So how practical it is to extend the area that we wind up removing snow from, we'll wind up having to look at whether or not that's something that can be done on a broader scale, or maybe the execution of a pilot program in order to determine how successful we can be at achieving that, particularly on routes where we know that accessibility remains a barrier for users. That's the sort of thing that I'd like us to explore, because we have to recognize that will have budgetary implications. And so there's some routes where it might not be justified, and other routes where it would be very much in high demand. And so we may wind up looking to transit to provide us with some advice on where would we concentrate those ideas in order to effect the greatest change without blowing up the budget in the process. Those would be my major ones. I'm most interested in hearing what the rest of the members of the committee have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Kathy Stevenson.
I don't really have much to say. I just want to point out that when the same people that are getting on the bus, sometimes they're getting off the bus and they're not in the same circumstance because they may have changed into a uniform. They bought parcels, they have empty or bags and stuff with them. And that even goes beyond the weather having changed while you're at work. So I haven't used the bus in years, but I depended on it for many years to go to Barrington Street. And it was, you were pretty much putting your life in your hands getting off there, because they're like, the puddles were the size of a lake. And we had to wear, I don't know about today, but we had to wear dress shoes and that to work, and you didn't really have time to, you were carrying a box around with your winter boots and your backup shoes and everything. And then when you were coming home, you had more parcels because you had groceries, work assignments, stuff they gave you. So that is sort of a consideration that I rarely hear mentioned. I'm sure I will in this group, but in the outside world. And I think it's more women too, because when you're coming home with kids or picking kids up at daycare, you've got a lot more equipment sometimes than when you got into the daycare. You have all the stuff they made at daycare and their empty lunch bags for the week and all that type of stuff. So anyway, that was my only point.
Thanks, Kathy. Next on the list is Glenn Babcock.
Okay, I probably won't take a lot of time either, although I've got a lot of issues on my mind. Frankly, most of them are more provincial issues than city issues. I think I've mentioned this before, but my wife and I have essentially adopted a couple of older women, two sisters who don't have any other family and who have health concerns. And we just the number of challenges that we run into in terms of any kind of assessments, doctor visits, whatever, is just a nightmare here in Nova Scotia. Maybe elsewhere as well. But anyway, I realize the city can't do much about that. Also, as mentioned before, I have some interest in services and programs for children on the autism spectrum, since I have a grandson who has autism. But again, other than maybe some recreation programs or school-related programs in the city, that would be mostly provincial as well. The only thing really that is an issue for me gets back to transit, and it's maybe accessibility from a slightly different perspective. I don't really mind that much having to climb over a snowbank if I get off a bus. But the issues that I have with transit, being where I am out in Porters Lake, unfortunately, all my fellow residents in Porters Lake don't apparently want sidewalks. But when I'm going in to help out one of those people that we adopted, as I mentioned, who live in Dartmouth, if I drive in with my wife, it's 25 minutes. If she's out of town and I have to get there myself, it's a 25-minute walk to the bus stop. A lot of that walk is along number 7, which has no sidewalks and has very little shoulder. And in the winter or in the wet weather, you're pretty much walking on the road to get to the bus stop. And then, of course, being out in the country, there's no shelters. I will say that it seems to me that for the most part, the buses run on time, which is very useful. I rely a lot on navigation apps on my phone to tell me when I need to go, when to meet up with the bus, so I don't end up standing there for too long. So I do appreciate that part. One of the trips that I made in the winter on a nice cold day, the bus got me in as far as the terminal on Portland Street, and then I needed to make a connecting bus. Again, relying on the app on my phone, it told me what platform I was supposed to wait on, except it was wrong. So after waiting for 15 minutes or so, it turns out that my bus actually was leaving from the next platform over, which, if you have good vision, you can probably see the sign on the next platform over and know you're in the wrong spot. But I didn't know until the bus drove past me on its way out, and then it was going to be another 40 minutes till the next bus. So having the information up to date and correct on navigation apps would be a significant issue for accessibility. And I don't know really whether the errors would be on the Halifax side or on the side of the app that's giving out the information. And as a minor pet peeve, I'm not a regular commuter to Halifax, so I don't take the ferry at the same time all the time. But I do regularly go to the page to look up when the next ferry is going to be, and I don't really understand why it has to be a long single page of ferry times that you have to scroll down about 8 pages to get to the time that you want to look at. There's got to be a better system to look up the next ferry time. So those are my pet peeves.
Thank you, Glenn. It seems like transit's really the big theme along here, which is great because it'll be so easy for us to do that part of the work plan. Hooray! Yeah. Next on the list is Anne Sinclair.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I had a couple items. The obvious ones, of course, would be inputting from this past fall's town hall, the to-do list, and somehow prioritizing those things as an exercise. And then thinking about that it was helpful to have the 2023 work plan. There are a couple items on there that I think would just automatically slide into the new work plan, such as priority 2, budget planning process. Like, I'm not sure if I know that's been ongoing for a while with council, and I'm not sure I don't know if we've had any input or any sessions on that, or what we should do about that. But I think that should be in the work plan since it was in there before as well. And then I missed the priority 1, the built form. just coming from my own area of built environment, to maybe get a check-in or an update on all of HRM's buildings, which are being gradually audited and potentially repairs and are being made to reach compliance in advance of the 2030 goals of the province's accessibility legislation. Another thing is I'm trying to figure out, I don't want there to be any redundancy, so I don't want to suggest any items that are already being done by Melissa's team at the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. But I express a bit of ignorance about our relationship with what they're doing and their relationship with what we're doing. I did look at their strategy, their 2025 to 2028 access strategy, and there were 30 items on there that I found very interesting, and don't want to duplicate that, but I would be interesting to know, does this committee or can we take part in helping to move those things along if that's necessary, or if it's not even part of our mandate. So I'm a bit confused about that overlap. Yeah, and then back to the priority 2 from the 2023, and the built environment, all the buildings, like that relates to the budget process. So if the audits are done and the accessibility audits are done on the buildings, and they say we have this shopping list of things that need to be done to reach compliance, then is that getting put into any budgets? Do we have a say? Could we have a say about those things? And then just methods, some mechanism to follow up on the work plans. Like I guess there wasn't any 2024 or 2025 work plan. Otherwise, that's the one that we would have got instead of 2023. Not to send out any criticisms. It's just, I just think the follow-up, it's great to have these lists, but if maybe there was a column added to the work plan that would suggest desired completion date, or a column that says in progress, or status updates of things like that. And should we check in with the work plan, maybe not halfway through the year, but partway through the year, check in with the work plan, see how things are going. That's my list. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. Yeah, this has been, I think, a conversation both when Celine was chair and I was vice chair, and now that I'm chair and Nick is vice chair, we've been talking about like how are we actually following up and keeping up with like the status of the work plan. So glad that you brought that up. That's definitely a thing we've been talking about.
Could I just say one quick thing relating to Anne? I did present to the standing committee last year in May, and I condensed a lot of what we were doing as a committee with the 2023 work plan. I still have the slides. So I don't know if Rochelle, like we could send it out as just something else that can maybe help guide us through, because I imagine we'll be talking about the work plan in April, I'm expecting.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, we could definitely do that. Feel free to send it to Elizabeth like whenever, and then it'll just be part of the agenda review too. Cool, thanks, Celine. All right, next on the list is Oliver Keith.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll also try to, I'm trying to be wary not to duplicate things as well. I think that was a really good point, and I went into this. But I will say on the built environment side, I had a similar idea about bus snow and stoppages. I also think parking is an excellent idea. I was thinking about that while we were speaking, and I want to emphasize that. Couple points that I was thinking about is accessible transportation. On that note, I had a conversation with a friend recently about, the HRM, Nova Scotia, Halifax data, and the Accessibus, particularly around making it to appointments I know, Glenn, you mentioned this and it kind of reminded me of what I was going to say now. And I thought it was actually a very interesting point because I tried to do some digging about some data around some of the points that we talk about and we hear so often. It's actually quite difficult to kind of find just straight numbers on what these issues are and like how they're actually being impacted. But the Accessibus stuff is not good. Like pretty from 2023 to 2025, the numbers have been pretty drastically negative. For example, like trips not provided, i.e., so Accessibus being unable due to its own staffage being inadequate, went up 46%. Also, the standard of care of customer service resolutions dropped 25%. And the on-time performance system for things like appointments dropped 15%. But that's just me having to crunch the numbers between reports. So my first point is more just on the accessibility of information. It's very difficult for, I mean, people within the city to get a good idea without having to kind of work to get an idea of what the true kind of, metrics are saying. And it reminds me of our town hall of there's so many voices, but so little actual translation of those voices into real-time metrics. Which brings me to my next point. I was thinking about just information and communications. John Saint-Amand brought this up earlier, and I also agree that I wish there was a way, and I'm not entirely clear about how this would work out. So I'm kind of spitballing here. But I think in the 2025-2028 accessibility strategy, they bring up kind of this improvement of like accessibility to information and communications, and the connection to the data and the information is something that I was thinking about. Accessibus, built environment, information, and then I had one more about consultation. Again, kind of spitballing here, but there have been a number of instances where a plan is brought towards us, and we're trying to kind of work through this plan, but it's kind of already down the line. I'm not entirely sure how this could work for us in practice in terms of the work plan, but it would be great if we could kind of secure kind of the defined mandatory consultation period with us and perhaps the larger community. Specifically, at just kind of getting at those smaller windows before the plan is kind of more put set in stone. Because I know personally I've left meetings thinking, oh God. And I wish that was not the case. Now I know that was a little bit of cut and dry and quick, but those are kind of the 4 main points for me. Yeah, thanks.
Cool. Thanks, Oliver. Tricia, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
I do. I just wanted to address Oliver's valid concern with Accessibus. And during our budget session with Transit just recently, we learned that, and this is a new executive director. So he just came last January. So he's been in for like a year. And he into an Accessibus review, which is much needed, overdue. So that is happening 26, 27. And so I think that would be very good to have them come and present results to this committee when they are finished that review. And then they will have like a plan to, bridge the gaps, fix what they see is needed, and have a new plan moving forward. So I just wanted to say it is in the works very shortly.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's really great to hear. I guess I should be clear that I kind of use Accessibus as a bit of a like a case study of my point about the metrics and how to find them. It's really good to hear that they're coming back to hopefully talk to us about it, because it is clearly kind of an issue. Yeah, that's really good. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you both. Okay, it's my turn in the hot seat, I guess, and then we'll go back around for any like further comments, questions, etc. I'm also very on board for adding transit as like its own chunk, because I think there's a lot of like sub points we can put in there in the work plan. Something that I recently learned about the transit apps and all the like GPS navigation stuff, that like where if you're using the bus, you're getting like the schedule and the times and things like that. I learned from someone who used to work in the municipality, but doesn't anymore, so was giving me all the hot tips and hot goss, that the way that the GPSs work right now, unless they've changed recently, or at least the way that they were working there at the time, is that they're not actually based on, or not the GPS, the way that the schedules that go into people's phones and apps are created isn't through GPS of where the buses are. It's through the likelihood of like data through a created schedule. So it's like data points rather than actual like navigation points. Which makes no sense. And so sometimes if anyone's ever been waiting for a bus and it just never shows up and then it resets to tell you like a new time that the bus is going to come, that's because like the data that's coming into your phone has reset without actually being accurate. So in general, I think like updating the apps to follow a navigation system and not follow a random schedule would be really useful. And as we're sort of looking at the accessibility of information sharing of like transit routes and things like that, it would be great to have those updated in the same way, so that we're not just relying on essentially like arbitrary numbers of when a bus is supposed to be somewhere and actually being able to plan your route, especially if you have to walk 25 minutes in the snow. Not on a sidewalk to get to a bus stop. It really sucks when that bus just never comes. So that's some stuff I heard about through the grapevine, and not through the grapevine, through someone who was like super well informed, because literally used to work for one of the offices in there and is like quite a nerd about transit stuff. So thank you to that person for letting me know. Also wanted to bring up, I think that like parking and transit kind of go hand in hand. As parking bylaws and parking like things are changing, that's going to be really heavily impacted by the accessibility of transit. People will not take transit if it's bad. They will just drive downtown and then complain more about the price of parking and park in accessible spots when they're not supposed to, and park in front of driveways when they're not supposed to. So it essentially means that we have like more enforcement that needs to happen, versus like the better transit is, the more people actually want to take it. And like, yeah, if transit's never on time because the schedule isn't reliant on actual like accurate information, then people won't use it. So I feel like everything everything happening with transit has a direct impact on parking. And then yeah, parking's been brought up by a few other people, but I always think parking's important to have around because it just seems to be an ongoing conversation anyways. I had two more points, but Trish, you have your hand up and I imagine it's related to parking and transit, so go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just thinking of things that happened over budget from what you said. So enforcement, yeah, I just wanted to let you know that Councillor White during budget, she put forward a motion to hire another enforcement officer, but like a compliance officer for parking. And it passed. So there will be another one, and that position will be made up with the money that they will get from the parking ticket. So it's not like a net negative for our budget at all. So yes, enforcement's very key, especially in the peninsula. And you are right, Rochelle. So I just wanted to let you know that is another piece of information that we've done to hopefully help a little bit with some of that enforcement piece.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Okay, and then my last two pieces here in terms of like work plan, and I don't know if this belongs on work plan or if it's just like an overall like planning thing that that is kind of already happening but should continue to happen. In the agenda review meetings that Nick and I have with Melissa and Elizabeth and Morgan, prior to these meetings, we've been talking about having regular council updates, which would be related to the budget planning process too. And so we're actually getting updated through that. So there is one now in every meeting. It's just always at the end. So in case we like run out of time, it's something that like could in theory be pushed. I think to make sure that we have that plus the budget element, I think that like in my mind, like the chunk of the work plan, I'm sort of seeing it be based on like updates from council, and like more just involvement from this committee in regional council, kind of more back and forth. So that it would include the budget process, but it would also include just like other motions and things that, and like decisions that are being made at the council level, that like impact accessibility. And then we would have more back and forth and more information sharing for that. So I'm kind of seeing that being, yeah, including the budget element that's already in the work plan, but then being a little like extra. Is how my mind is looking at it from like the document. Yeah, and then the last piece here is just something that I wanted to let the committee know about, and I don't think it necessarily belongs on the work plan, but I do think it's relevant. when it comes to like how we receive presentations and like what they're actually doing, and making sure that the presentations we get are related to our work plan, and like we're actually like going through and having status updates and making sure we're doing what we say we're going to do. We've been talking also in the agenda review meetings about having really like much clearer expectations for presenters that are coming in. So they have a much stricter timeline now of when they have to send us information so that it can go to the committee. They have much stricter guidelines, or we're hoping that they have much stricter guidelines and that they follow them in terms of how accessible their presentations actually are. And like, when they come to us and say, we want to present about this, we're kind of coming back to that and saying, well, this is what we think we need to tell you. So actually, can you like tweak your presentation a little bit? So we're just trying to have, stricter guidelines and more information for presenters, so that when it comes to the committee, it's a little bit more useful and actually related and like relevant to what we're supposed to be doing or what we feel is important that we're doing. So that's just kind of like a piece that is already in the works. And so it doesn't have to go on the work plan, but I think is related to a lot of what we're talking about in terms of like, how do we make sure we're actually doing the work plan? And part of it is by when we ask people to come in and present to us, it's like directly related to what we've put in the work plan. So yeah, that is what I have to say. I'm going to turn it back to anybody who wants to say more than what they said before. Feel free to just throw hands up and I'll just go in order of how I've seen them, or like they come up on my screen. So Celine, go ahead.
Hello. All right. So to kind of cover on what everybody else has shared, to Jean Saint-Amand, thanks for the keyword information design. I think that is just perfect, very short and sweet, kind of defines a lot. And it is true. Like, I think we need a portion that is just like really specific to transit. And I'm going to get to that in a second, because there's other stuff that Rochelle has mentioned that I want to throw to that. But to Jean Saint-Amand, when you were talking about a pilot program, I made a suggestion a while back. So I'm going to bring it back here, is especially for places to dig up snow, like especially if you would assign citizens, like, because again, we're talking about budgets, but if we would assign bulk, because we did have an era where citizens did shovel snow as part of, the whole, how the city was run. Sorry, my words are not really that great tonight, but like, let's say, for example, there is a bus stop near my house. I would be a citizen volunteering to go and dig it up. Sometimes some people already have snow blowers. You could have an incentive, sort of like, hey, with exchange of a bus pass. There's a lot of students out there that would benefit greatly from that. I've been in a position where I was provided a bus pass and it was life-changing. So a lot of people out there, would definitely want to be of service in that way. So while, like, Rochelle, you were saying, like, trying to get more transit users, because again, a lot of people won't use it for varied reasons. And the one that kept me from using transit is exactly trying to access information and make sense of all of these like pencil thin directives, that everything is about viewing each and every bus stop and everything. There's no like cheat sheet. So like, I'm going to start reading, because again, I don't want to call things thingies or whatever. But yeah, like the current bus tables overwhelm riders by listing every bus stop with equal weight. They make it hard to see buses that are connecting neighborhoods or which route to get around the city efficiently. So yeah, it's like we need a good like schematic network map that would complement existing schedules by providing a high level view of Halifax's primary transit corridors. Because again, it's been almost 3 years now that and I've been in Halifax for 18 years, and it's only really the last 3 years that I've been using transit. And I feel like it's to no end to discover how to connect to Dartmouth, how to connect to other places. And honestly, I'm coming to find out it can be easier explained than that. It's possible. Like by everywhere that I've been, especially for the job that I've been doing lately, it's really, really possible. So like we need to explore having a simplified diagram that highlights main routes, major transfer hubs, and neighborhood connection. The one thing that you brought up, Rochelle, about apps, which is perfect because this is going to be the best counter argument that the department is going to throw back. Oh, well, we got an app for that. Wait, when we're talking about apps, they're not universally accessible. It creates a digital divide because not everybody's got a device limitations. It depends if you have an old phone. My phone is almost 10 years old. So if there's like a new configuration, it might exclude a bunch of people. Visual impairments too. Like there's just a lot of that too. Like you're scrolling and there's too much going on for visually impaired people, I gotta say. And even for those who have cognitive impairments. So with physical signage, because that's what I'm pushing for. Physical signage ensures everyone can understand the system. Cognitive load and real-time decision-making. Apps require multiple taps, scrolling, and search, which can overwhelm in a busy terminal. And I've been there. And it's also worse when the bus shows up and you're not quite sure if that's the one you're supposed to rush for, because sometimes you're going to wait half an hour for the next one. So busy terminals are stressful. Riders benefit from a single glance overview to see the main route and hubs. Again, I keep repeating that, rather than scanning an app while trying to catch a bus. Like it is really, really difficult, a difficult thing to do. Oh, and to respond to Oliver on Access a Bus, I really think everything you suggested right on. The one thing that I think would be even more interested to add on, because I was just previously saying I'm an avid transit rider, and I have been able to see how many people with mobility aids access the regular transit bus. Like I know that Access a Bus really does hold a need. Like obviously there's some people who are in outskirts or places not near a bus stop, but I've seen a lot of people throughout time, transit riders that have a wheelchair and have managed to use it plenty of times. Like I actually see them as regulars. I would like to hear from them. Like it would be cool to get data from people who are in mobility aids but are not using Access a Bus. They're actually like accessing regular transit buses. So other than that, just going to scan right through just to see. Yeah, so again, I think I got it. I got it out of my system. But yeah, okay, thank you. Oh, and again, Jean Saint-Amand, like the understanding the entry of a bus and the exit part, like the way you explain it, I'm just saying thank you for those keywords because I'll be using that.
Thanks, Celine. Councilor Brady, did you have your hand up or did I imagine that?
You did not, but I thought, no, I'll just take it down. I'm good.
Okay, cool. Anyone else have anything to add? Yeah, go ahead, Anne.
Thank you. Yeah, I found another thing on my list, which is again, just from my professional experience as an architect going around looking at newer buildings, the building inspection services. I know they're often understaffed, and there have been a lot of code changes to the accessibility parts of the code. There have been a lot of code changes in general, so it's been challenging for everybody to keep up, but I do see in newer and renovated buildings in Halifax, non-compliant code things happening, which is really a shame. Why do I need to say that? It's just seeing grab bars in the wrong place, like things that could be done, could be caught during construction by building inspectors. And I don't know if there's anything the committee can do to connect with whoever runs that is there are provincial inspectors, but Halifax has their own plans examiners for when building permits are applied for. If things could get caught at that point, that would be helpful before construction happens. And then when building inspectors are on site, if they're more up to speed with the current codes, then life would be better for everybody.
Great, thanks, Anne. Great points. Yeah, and I think this, it kind of relates back to like the compliance piece around like who's like when something isn't followed, whose job is it to say like you have to pay a fine, or like why pay a fine? Just fix it. Like you can't operate your building until you fix it. But anyways. that's a
Yeah,
quick
and I
tangent.
guess I said it kind of backwards, but if it can be caught at the,
True, right.
well, ideally at the education stage in the NSCC and at the architecture schools, that's one thing to educate the designers. But then once it goes to get a building permit, that's another opportunity for oversight. And then the third opportunity is with the building inspectors.
For sure. Cool. Thank you. Any other things to add? All right. So just based on what everyone said, I'm going to try to do a little summary for Elizabeth. And then if anyone is like, you absolutely got this wrong, please let me know. So it sounds like transit is a giant priority. I think it can incorporate a whole bunch of the things that we've already said. It gives us a bit of like follow through ability where we can say, okay, we need to talk to Accessibus. They have to come in and present to us. We need to talk to snow clearing again. We need to talk to whoever makes the app, whoever's doing that stuff. And in general, like the information and communications people like of Halifax Transit, and figuring out, how those things are happening. So, these are just some things, but I do think that priority 1 is transit. Priority 2 sounds like it's going to be related to built form. And if I'm not mistaken, or is there something we can do that's a little bit broader where we also include like the construction pieces that we were talking about earlier in this meeting. So where was it? Let me see. I think Celine said it. So I'm just going to go up to my notes from what Celine said. So like infractions for construction sites, infractions for building codes, infractions for whatever. I feel like that's all part of built form, but also I know that the HRM defines really specific stuff as built form. So perhaps it includes something else. I also think that within the like infractions piece, we could include the pieces on parking. Because I think in general, parking is a whole other can of worms, but I think transit really covers a lot of the parking issues in a sense. And then the other piece is just like the infractions piece. So is one of the priorities just infractions? That'll be a big priority. So this is another priority thing. And then when it comes to like budget updates, having more information from council. And then, we can sort of pull from from 2023's work plan around budget updates and being involved in the budget planning process, but also perhaps adding to it that we can be involved in more council decisions by having more updates. And so far, we already have added updates to all of our meetings, but just having it in the work plan is a nice reminder of keep doing this kind of thing. So, I feel like if we stick somehow to those like larger themes, we can fit everything that we need to, that everyone has talked about into it. Maybe. But if anyone feels like, I do think like something that Oliver said around information and communication for like across the board from like the accessibility plan for the HRM maybe is getting missed right now. But I do think in the past we have had like Melissa presented to us, updates and things to that plan. So I think that's something we can always ask for separately from the work plan. Maybe it's a part of the region. Maybe it's a part of the like updates and just being involved more in the DNI office and the regional council and the budget planning process. Maybe this is just how do we get involved with like the larger HRM project pieces. So maybe that's actually the big takeaway here. Go ahead, John St. Amand, and then I'll go back to Celine.
Thank you. So what I would suggest, and this is just my opinion on this, and Councillor Purdy, feel free to jump in and correct me, but it feels like I would recommend an emphasis on ongoing dialogue with the business units on what their operations look like, because that's a way to influence budgetary decisions long before they actually come to council. Because honestly, by the time they come before council, it's pretty late in the process. And so, I applaud the notion of having the council have an influential voice at the budgeting table. But ultimately, in my mind, you certainly want to have an ongoing conversation with council. But the early opportunity to influence how budgetary decisions are made, or to influence them with that accessibility lens in having the conversation with the business units themselves, because they present what they are planning on working on, obviously with some direction from council, but it's broad direction from council that we provide early in the process. And then the business units go away, they come back, and they present to us, okay, based on that, here's how we've adjusted our plan, and here's what it's all going to cost. And so it's a slow moving train. Yes, there are opportunities for us to influence things after the fact. And that's one of the reasons that we go through such a lengthy process in the budget deliberations. It's very slow, but it's very transparent. And so there are ample opportunities for members of any committee, members of the public, members of industry groups to come in and present to council and have their voices heard. But that is fairly late in the game, because there's so much work that's done in advance of that process that's done within the business units themselves, that and when they're looking at what they're going to do for the year, it's already informed by strategic priorities that have been expressed by council. It's consistent with the direction that council has provided for what its priorities are from a budgetary perspective for the coming year. It's consistent with the administrative order, along with the general mission for each of those respective business units. So if I were to provide one little piece of advice for this committee, it would be continue to have the eye on the business units themselves. So in the conversation that we just had about how do we influence transit, how do we affect change within the transit business unit, and what kind of presentations can we receive from that business unit so that we have a sense of what's coming, and we can help shape the direction that that business unit takes to address accessibility. That is the way to really affect the change, I think. And there's an opportunity to do that at every step of the way in advance of the budget, so that the budget is then a reflection of those priorities already having been sprinkled into the way that the business units present that information back to council.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I like that wording around like ongoing input with business units. And I would extend it also to be ongoing input like with council, because, I hear what you're saying, that I do think that there is sort of like a bigger starting place where we can have more effect and change. But I also I would like to make sure that the counselors being here also has an effect at council where we are not. So that's kind of where I'm seeing the I think there I would like to see a bit more back and forth, to know that when we bring things up in these meetings, that those issues are also being brought back to council, which is why I presume we have counselors present in these committee meetings, at least from my lens. Cool.
Yeah, all the conversations that we have here, we take back and we have conversations amongst ourselves with the entire group. And there are certain counselors that have a particular focus on a particular business unit, or they have more in-depth knowledge on one topic versus another. And so we wind up sharing quite a bit as a result. It would be nice if there was maybe what you're looking for is a more formal process to influence those kinds of discussions earlier in the process. Because again, if it waits until we're into the budget process, it's harder to redirect things. But if we have those conversations as early as possible, and that influence is just permeating throughout the decisions that are made before it even gets to that point, then I think it'll wind up having a more positive impact overall.
For sure. Cool. I love a both and. Great. Thank you. Celine, go ahead.
I'm back. So, because again, we kind of narrowed down a few things that we want to approach in the work plan, but two things that stand out that have not been brought up. Parks and Rec, we are never really talking about that much. And I know that you and I have even talked about even having a representative at the town hall from last year, but then there's always, they want to show up and they want to present. That I find those are that's a pretty good key issue about living well in Parks and Rec in the Halifax Regional Municipality with accessibility. So I think that one, I don't know where it fits yet, but again, we'll have another meeting, but I'm kind of just dropping that prompt if anybody wants to think it over from here to the next meeting. The other thing, and it actually kind of ties to mandatory vetting and reporting for funded organizations. If we cover safety within the city too, like access to services, access to even just get out of the house and be safe upon going and returning, because again, we're talking about street lights, we're just talking about just even neighborhoods, like how do we ensure that neighborhoods are more safer, because a lot of people that are on foot tend to be from marginalized communities, because again, we don't all have money for cars and stuff, so we have to rely on getting home safely on foot. So anyways, I'm also just dropping this as a prompt because again, just came to mind. Still working on it, but anyway, just wanted to mention that.
Thanks, Celine. Go ahead, Oliver.
Yeah, Parks and Rec just put a light bulb over my head because I think in 2023, way back then, I had the similar idea about green spaces, Parks and Rec, and accessibility. And I feel like I wrote some notes, like something for that. So I can try and dig that up, and then maybe that'd be good to put under the built environment bucket, and we can look at it again. Yeah, great point. Thanks, Celine.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, please send any notes you can dig up. But yeah, that's a great point about bringing green space into that built environment piece too. Okay, well, we have another big discussion to have. So if there's nothing else, I think this is the end of the discussion of the work plan. Elizabeth, I'm sure, has been taking notes feverishly, and I also took some notes. So hopefully everything's in there, and then we'll get some sort of summary together and see kind of where outliers are, and maybe we can find a way to fit them in another way. Also probably should have mentioned that, and maybe everybody already knows this, but just in case, the town hall stuff is like automatically part of our work plan. So it doesn't need a conversation, it just happens. And we're gonna have, it's having its own conversation. Okay. So next on the agenda is 9.1.2 2026 Town Hall Planning. This conversation is really going to be about nailing down a venue, because that's kind of where we're at right now. Venue, and then once we have the venue, we can nail down the date as well, because certain dates are attached to certain venues. There's also some other elements that I can summarize if there are questions, but I guess I'll just do like a very quick overview of kind of what we're working with here. So Melissa and Elizabeth did lots of digging when it came to options for different venues other than the library for the town hall. One of the biggest things that came up was that the cost is quite high to, and not necessarily like an absolute barrier, but it does take budget out of the other parts of the town hall. So it is something we should be aware of, because right now we get the library for free. So costs for other venues go anywhere from $600 to $1,000. I think there was actually one that ended up being like $2,000 with all the other, like, it was like you have to, like, the space booking is $1,000, but to book the space, you have to hire all these people, which is another $1,000. So I'm like, why don't you just say the space booking is $2,000? But whatever, that's not my bag. So something to keep in mind is that the library doesn't have a cost associated with it, whereas the other places do. Again, not to say that it's an absolute barrier, but it is something to keep in mind where we have more money to do other stuff. The town hall budget hasn't changed in the last few years. I think it's still $10,000. So that's what we're working with. And so, yeah, just keeping in mind that of the $10,000, how much do we want to spend on the venue itself versus how much do we want to have within it? Yeah, just a question for everybody. And then the last piece, the stuff around dates will be relevant when we get to kind of the venue stuff. So hopefully everybody had a chance to see the breakdown of the venue spaces in the email today. If not, I can do a little reading summary, but if you are able to open it up and have a look at that, or if you were able to peek at it earlier and get some information from that, that is great. Yeah, but if not, I can answer questions. Melissa and Elizabeth can both answer questions, but I guess essentially what I'm going to do is open up the floor now to have a discussion about the venue. And then once we decide what our situation is with the venue, we'll get back to the date. So first on my list is Councillor Trish Purdy.
Okay, I'm gonna be boring and say I choose the library because it's free. That's how I roll. Free is
Yeah.
good.
I do love free. I know. I agree. And like generally, I love a free thing. When there's a sign that says free food, I usually am directed towards it. So I get that. Cool. Anything else to add about venue stuff, or just that was it?
No, but wow, it's expensive to rent a space. Wow.
I know. Especially some of those fancier spaces, they are pricey. Cool. Next on the list is Councillor Jean Saint-Amand.
Well, I'm very okay with free. It's hard to discount that as an option. I'm very interested to hear from the rest of the group because there had been at least some initial reservations with the form factor that we were aiming for and the level of intimacy and so forth. And so, is free reason enough for us to consider returning to Paul Regan Hall, or is there enough of a desire, coupled with looking at the price tags that we have in that email, to consider other venues? I'm not sure whether I've got a strong sense of what the right direction would be in this case.
Super fair. I think that's, yeah, great. Let's hear from other folks too. Okay, next on the list is Kathy Stevenson.
After I was reviewing the paper and hearing you guys talk, I think free is probably the way to go. I mean, there are other venues that you could explore, like Buffalo Club Lions and that type of stuff, that are also either free or they're $50. But yeah, the library seems the most sensible at this point.
Cool. Thanks, Kathy. Next on the list is Glenn Babcock.
In going through the meeting materials, I didn't really see the comparison with some of the other ones. I had read the information about the Nova Scotia Community College. And I guess at this point, I would have to say that I haven't made it to the library location for a town hall yet. So my personal experience with the space is non-existent. I have heard the concerns that have been raised by others. Given that there is a limited budget, I would be inclined to probably go with the cheapest one, the free one. But that being said, I will read more carefully through the other venue information as well, and just see if any of them might offer advantages that would outweigh the cost, and I'll send you a note.
Great, thanks, Ben. And yes, Trish, I see your hand up, and I know that your schedule is tighter, so go ahead. I'll let you jump in the line.
No, I think I put this in the chat last time, but I don't know if it got read or anything. But Glenn, I know you haven't been able to go because you don't have a way in for that. So I just want you to know, I will pick you up. Like we will. I'm in Cole Harbour, so I'm the closest to you, and we'll just do it. So just so you know, you won't have to stay home.
Okay.
We will get you to the town hall.
All right. That sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you. Awesome.
That's how I roll, getting rides from people.
Totally. Thank you. Next on the list is Anne Sinclair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for this list. I've just now thankful that I was further down the list. I had some time to listen to the others and read all these points, which is very, very helpful to have. So first off, I think the bus stop is so lovely, but I think it's too small among the other issues that were brought up. It's quite limited space. The only space for wheelchairs, there's no option. It's in the front row because it's tiered with loose seats. So I would cancel out bus stop. Spats seems awfully expensive, and the other points. Mount St. Vincent, I think is really, the Seton Auditorium option would be good. The Rosaria, I wouldn't agree with. Alderney Landing, that's too bad about the food, because I love everybody's suggestions about using social enterprise options for food. I don't want to sort of lose that. Ivany, unless they've changed things a lot, the accessible seating is not very accessible. And as you say, the stage, that sort of puts it totally out of the picture for me. So I really appreciate this idea of down near the bottom under the library, one option to address the issues around separate entrances could be to have all attendees enter through the accessible entrance. Excuse me, meaning the front level. I've been at events where that's happened, and it does have a feeling of everybody's going in the same way, which is nice. However, it does cancel out the sort of universal design idea of choice, which is you could, if you do go in at that front, then you don't have the choice of going to the spaces at the back, which there's also space for wheelchairs at the top as well. So the idea of options and preference, I don't know. So I'm on the fence about that, but and one point in favor of the library is just human nature. Well, for me anyway, is thinking, oh, the town hall, that's at the library. So if it's at the same place over a number of years, then people are just expecting it to be there, and that might help get some people there again. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. Great points. I also feel you about that choice piece. I really, yeah. Well, I won't say anything now. I'll get through the list, and then I'll say my points after when it's my turn. Next on the list is Celine Vatour.
All right, hello. Kind of doubling down on the same thing about Bus Stop Theater. I've gone to a couple of shows there, but I do find it gets clustered very fast. Because we had about a count of 50 attendees at the Central Library, and I do see potential of this growing more. And I find at the Bus Stop Theater, I find even the lobby area, and also the fact that we wouldn't even be able to have booth space, like it'd just be too small. And even just like the front of the place, they have a they do have like a crosswalk, but the crosswalk, I gotta say, like right now, it's on an iffy, I would say. At least there's 3 buses you can access. There's the 10, 7, and 1. And so that would be somewhat accessible, especially the one now going on Gottingen coming from the terminal. I just wanted to at least give Bus Stop Theater some highlights. There were some good highlights, but I'm just worried that if we have too many people showing up, it may get too crowded for that. Spatz Theater, it sounds cool and all, but there's no real bus that really stops in front of there. So that's kind of a joy kill for me. And plus it's expensive. It's a nice venue, but again, I don't think we're going to have 700 people show up, because that's the capacity of that venue. I have actually taught a workshop at Mount St. Vincent, and funny enough, I'm still a mad science instructor, and I'm somebody who had to carry my kids through the buses. So when it comes to mobility, while I'm not a wheelchair, the width to even just get into that building and go upstairs and all those places, it's not a really good travel, I would say, if you have like a mobility aid. Ivany campus, it's definitely the same thing, not that many buses, like there's like a 6 that goes through, but there's not that many connections to get there, because I'm not thinking with a car, because I don't have one. And the lobby is wonderful, so that I'll give compliments to. But again, for wheelchairs, like when I went to a conference, the people who were in wheelchairs ended up on stage facing the audience. So that was really a little too awkward. Alderney Landing, at least there's a lot of buses that pass by there, but just the make of the place, you're going up and down and everything, I just find it cognitively confusing. I actually don't really enjoy it. So it's not really my thing. But yeah, so basically, obviously, we're kind of talking Central Library again, because again, multiple buses stop in front. The choice piece again, I double down on that same thing too, because again, like it's near the bathrooms as well. So we need passageway that is closest to the bathrooms, because again, the other entrance, and why does everything have to be in one entrance? We all can comfortably choose our spot, and so we won't be so cramped together, because that ramp going down to that main entrance, as we're talking about, I mean, it works, but again, I don't know why it has to be one entrance. And quite honestly, I'm somebody who gets pretty claustrophobic. So when we have a very enclosed theater and there's not too many ways out, I'm not a fan. So the other thing I just wanted to mention too, given it's a 10 grand budget, we've never really talked about how that budget breaks down. And I'm wondering if there's actually possibility to see more transparency with how those finances are broken down. That's just something that when I never knew till just recently that it was 10 grand. So I'm just kind of saying that. Okay. And yeah, I'm done. I think I'm done. Yes, I'm done. All right.
Cool. Thanks, Celine. And actually about the budget thing, and Jean St. Thomas, you all put that in the chat. Half of the budget is for the live stream stuff. It's about and it keeps growing. Like they keep charging more, but we don't get any more money. So that's the funky part there. Yeah, go ahead, Celine.
Yeah, sorry. And then I just remembered, and now it just went away. If you give me a second, if I just don't talk, the budget. I'll come back.
Cool. Yeah. I'll come back around to all the speakers. So okay. Who is next? Oliver Keith.
Yeah, I'm with everybody. Maybe I went a little crazy this week, but I put this all in Excel. Excel is definitely saying the library. Free is really nice. Yeah. It definitely helps. I don't know if I can share my screen. Is that okay if I share my screen? Might actually help people think about this. Let me see. No, I can't. That's okay.
It can promote you to co-host, and then you can.
No, that's
your
okay.
screen.
Don't worry about it. No.
Are you
It's
sure?
okay. Yeah,
Okay, I'm
that's
making
okay.
you
I think we're all,
co-host
I think we're
anyway,
all
just
good
in
with the
case.
library. I think Seems is a good call anyway. The other thing, just the bus stop theater, I was thinking, because that seems like a somewhat second choice, is like people have said, the seating is so much less. Like with the library being around 300 capacity, I think that's great for space. Another nice thing about the library as well is I noticed people just in the library coming and funneling in just to see what's going on. It being such a central spot, I think, I don't know. It's just nice to kind of get that connection to people within the venue. And the other ones, like I don't, I'm not seeing the vision outside of the library. Yeah, they're just so expensive. Like Alderney Landing is expensive. Spats is crazy. Maybe if we were expanding, but I don't know. I don't see it. So yeah, library. That's my vote.
Thanks, Oliver. Cool. I am next on the speaking list, and I think I'm echoing a lot of what folks are saying. Something I noticed about MSVU is technically my second choice. However, I have a lot of qualms with MSVU. Every time I've been there, there's been some sort of accessibility nightmare. The other day, one of the elevators were broken, and I had to do a workshop on the 5th floor, and I was like, I don't know if I could get up there. I can do 1 flight of stairs. I can't do 5. There was another elevator. There was no signs telling me where it was, but I did find it in the end. Anyways, it also appears that they only offer 1 microphone. Like in the breakdown, they said like single mic was part of the budget, which is odd. And maybe maybe it was like a misprint or a misunderstanding, but I think we need more than 1 microphone. And it seems like, anyways. Yeah, so I'm also for the library. I do think I'm glad that we explored these other options. I think it's always good to know what our options are. I too am a really big fan of stuff that's free. especially knowing that like our budget is really so much of it is for the live stream, and that live stream is super important. And they also do a lot of the tech pieces. So it's not just like live stream services, it's the live streaming, it's the cart captioning, it's the like different videos in different places, and it's our like sound system. So it's not like one little thing, it's like quite a big part of the show, if you will. Yeah, I'm also on board for keeping all the entrances open. Personally, I think that like accessibility actually isn't one thing, and that accessibility looks like a lot of different things for a lot of different people. And so for some people, it's the physical aspect of can't go down the stairs, don't go in that setting, or like don't go in that door. Come through the other door if you want to be closer to the speakers, stay in the back if you don't. Versus like some people need to leave quickly. Some people do not want to be surrounded by other people. Some people just want to be at the back for whatever reason. So yeah, I think it's nice to remember that equity and equality are different things. Everyone coming in the same door doesn't actually mean that everybody's needs are met. So just a hot take there, which doesn't seem that hot. I feel like there's a lot of actually shared opinions on that one here. Yeah, let's address multiple access needs. Let's have multiple doors. People will choose where they want to go, and the options are there. It's not like we have to go in a back door to get, like, I actually don't think of that ramp one as a back door, because it leads literally to the stage, essentially. The other thing I like about the library is I think, heard a lot and learned a lot from last year, and it means we can actually apply some of those changes much easier. Like the Q&A table was in not a great place. Let's move the Q&A table next year. Easy fix, something that we can do because we know better, because we already did it. Like that's like 100% a check mark that we can put on our list, our to-do list. And we couldn't do that if we were in another place. We'd have to start from scratch, essentially, and making sure that the room was set up in a way that we like it. So I actually think it does make more sense to stick with the library. It seems like everybody is kind of on board for that. And if I recall correctly, Melissa, and correct me if I'm wrong, for the library, the official date and the one that we have held from them is October 8th. I guess Elizabeth can also answer this. I think it's also in an email, but.
Yeah,
Sorry, you go ahead, Melissa.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay, cool. So October 8th, I do not know what day of the week that is because I didn't check ahead of time. Did anybody know off the top of their heads?
It's a Thursday.
Okay, Thursday. Cool. So October 8th. Thursday, October 8th, I guess, is going to be our 2026 town hall. Yeah, also, and I'm not sure if folks saw the note about the trying to do it on a weekend, but it sounds like there actually is some pretty significant budgetary related stuff, because staff would have to be paid time and a half if they worked on weekends. So yeah, I guess evenings don't count for that, or they can like rearrange their schedules differently. It sounds like time and a half is kind of like necessary if someone who doesn't normally work on a weekend works on a weekend. So that I guess would have to come out of our town hall budget if it's not coming out of already a budget that exists, and probably won't, which we don't have a huge town hall budget. So maybe that's the thing. Yeah, go ahead, Elizabeth.
I was just going to mention for the library, I believe the other thing too, and Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, because you were the one who was in contact with the library, but they didn't, from what I remember you telling me, I don't think they had any weekends available either for Paul O'Regan Hall. So it would have to be, if the committee was looking to host on a weekend, it would have to be at an alternate venue. But Melissa, are you able to confirm or deny that?
Yeah, that is correct.
Cool. Okay, great. So I guess officially, this is the thing we can write down. 2026 Accessibility Advisory Committee Town Hall is Thursday, October 8th, 2026. I've said 2026 too many times. Cool. Yeah, did anyone have anything else to add? Or Celine, I think you had maybe something you wanted to add, but oh yeah, thanks for being here, Councillor Purdy. See you later.
Oh, okay, yeah, just because we were talking time and a half, and I was just saying if it was, we do this in the central library, and we would have decided, but now we're doing it on a Thursday, like for the future events, like at least when it's free, that's also good too, because we could kind of sport a bit of time and a half. So yeah, but the other thing too, I wanted to talk about Mount St. Vincent. The other thing that was a hard sell is the bus stop is there, because crossing the Bedford Highway, when I had to do it, like I was saying with my mad science kit and stuff, rolling it, they had the worst infraction that you could ever imagine to cross that single crosswalk. I had to bring it down a level of platform down. They had no ramp, they had nothing. It's like you had to hop over stuff in active rush hour. So I'm just saying, it's hard because the central library just manages to accommodate a lot more than other spaces.
For sure. Yeah, thank you. Cool. Okay. Well, that was easier than I thought it was going to be. That means we actually have time for the regional council update. Yay! Okay, so I'm going to invite Councillor Jean Saint-Amand to deliver an update on recent activities of the Halifax Regional Council Budget Committee. And then after we can go around for some questions.
Sure. Well, I lost my backup, so I guess I'll handle it on my own. So I jotted down a bunch of notes on some of the things that I recall, and I went back into my notes just to double check on some of the things that I thought this committee would appreciate hearing about. So among them, I referenced earlier some commitments that have been made with respect to Halifax Transit, and so there's a few that are worth highlighting. The first is that council decided to move ahead with the purchase of more buses in order to accelerate the implementation of Halifax Transit's core service plan, which is their core service plan is now available on the website, so you can have a look to see some of the details about what it is that they're seeking to achieve. But it's really all in the spirit of improving accessibility, improving reliability, so that the bus becomes a viable option for people. And, it's not going to happen overnight. It certainly will take concerted efforts with investments happening year over year in order to really, truly affect change. But being able to invest in more buses provides them with some more options. In most cases, what they're going to do is they're going to use the buses to reinforce high traffic routes where one of the problems that had been flagged was full buses having to pass by existing stops because they just couldn't let anybody else back on. And so, whatever they can do to make adjustments to their schedule in order to make that less of a threat to those that are actively using the transit system, we want to try to reward them by making sure that they have the ability to get on the bus. So that was one of the first decisions we made. We also okayed an increase in the budget for some strategic upgrades for accessibility of some bus stops, because that will wind up coming within the core service plan. Transit has already conducted a review of a variety of different areas of their network and identified areas that are not accessible. Celine, I have to imagine the one that you experienced by Mount St. Vincent is on their list. Whether or not it's been triaged as high on their list remains to be seen. I think they'll focus on the highest traffic routes and try to make some adjustments there. And some of that winds up coming directly from their own efforts, and some of it will wind up being rolled into recapitalization that'll be done in the vicinity of some of these particular stops. Basically, the idea of sending in only one crew to do a whole bunch of things rather than sending them in to do just one and only thing. We've made some additional investments in the road safety strategy, increasing that by more than $1 million. And that is meant to effect quite a bit of change. It'll mean investment in more signals, including RA5 signals, RRFBs, more lines being painted for crosswalks. So it's focused on, we're terming it road safety because it really is driven around the core routes that we have for people to be able to get in and out of the city. But a lot of the road safety strategy focuses on providing a little bit more safety for the pedestrians that are crossing our roadways. So I think that's a worthwhile increase in the spending that we're having. And they're going to, they've said that one of the principal challenges that they had was that there was just not enough budget allocated to that particular facet of how they were trying to initiate change within the municipality. And so a motion was made to bring a little bit more to that effort. Also complementing that will wind up being a road safety campaign. This was another instance where The group that's responsible for communications was stymied principally by a lack of budget and a lack of personnel in order to effect this kind of messaging. And so there was a motion that was brought forward by Councillor White that Council supported. And so that will wind up providing a little bit of enhancement to the Corpcom's ability to respond to messaging needs on that front. We wound up retaining our complete streets policy. There had been some discussion around was it slowing things down as far as road safety or road traffic was concerned, because it meant that there were segments that we had to wait on recapitalizing, because kind of like I was describing earlier, we try not to send a crew in to do one thing. We try to be very strategic about it and accomplish multiple things so that we only interrupt the traffic in the area once. And so the complete streets strategy also provides for, like if you use, I think it's Dutch Village Road is probably the most recent example, where it's a widening, it's a recapitalization, it's adding in bike lanes, it's adding in sidewalk infrastructure, it's adding in accessible signals. And all of that is accomplished all at the same time, because that particular street really needed considerable revision anyway. And so it was all done at once. Major inconvenience to the locals, major inconvenience to the local businesses. So we try to do it as best we can, as quickly as we can. But it means that we wind up putting in all the right infrastructure that supports every type of user at the same time. And so the staff has the discretion when to use that and when not to. The concern that had been raised was, are they actually doing that? And in the course of the conversations that we had, it seems like they are still ensuring that potholes get filled when they need to be filled. That's a matter of safety as well. But they're also ensuring that when a significant amount of work needs to be done in a particular key corridor, they will use whatever tools that they have at their disposal in order to ensure that a complete street methodology is at least considered, if not actively implemented in that area. On the capital side, we wound up, so one of the things that I referenced earlier was a lot more in the way of hardware being installed. So it's going to be more sidewalks, more multi-use pathways are destined for different locations around the municipality. There are signal upgrades in the form of RA5s and RRFBs. There's traffic calming measures that are being brought in order to affect pedestrian safety and bring some of our speeders down to earth. There's also a little bit more money that has been allocated for road safety data collection and intersection analysis, as well as just general pedestrian access improvements. The other thing that I will note is that we've got a microtransit pilot that will get underway in the Lucasville area. That's not in of itself, it's tangentially accessibility. I mean, it's not meant to replace something like Accessibus. It's really meant as an alternative to providing full bore transit in areas that don't have the population quite yet to support it. And so it's a bit of a proof of concept. And Councillor White's motion was successful in bringing forward some parking compliance officers, which will allow us to effect, it's quite a bit of change in the downtown area in particular. So for those that are looking for enforcement of some of the accessible parking spaces that are being taken up by Uber or whomever else that happens to stop in those spaces, that our ability to have parking enforcement, ticket or tow, will be greater by having more compliance officers on the street. And the upside is that it didn't wind up actually costing the municipality more money, because we were able to offset that with what we would imagine would wind up being more tickets being levied, and therefore that would cover off the cost of the additional staff required. The other piece that I'll share with everybody is that in the March 31st Regional Council meeting, the one coming up next week, a staff-initiated report on temporary pedestrian paths through work sites is being brought to Council. So that will wind up helping inform decisions that will be made by Council. It's a recommendation report, so staff has obviously decided that there is something worth Council weighing in on, and they've made a recommendation that will wind up influencing policy. And so I think that report will wind up being very informative. I think anybody on this committee should absolutely read it when it's available. That should be by end of day Friday. It should be available for the public to be able to read. Council will get a little bit of an early heads up by being able to read it as early as Wednesday, depending on where it is in its timetable. Sometimes we get when we get the agenda on Wednesday as an advance preview, sometimes some of the reports aren't ready for us yet, so it may take a couple of days, but normally it'll be ready certainly by the Friday. And that will allow this committee to read up on what it is that staff is proposing. And by all means, if you spot things that you think you want to help inform Councillors Purdy, White, and I on questions we should ask of staff when we have the opportunity, when this report comes back and staff present the information to council, that would be the time, because that would give us great information to be able to go to the staff members and get some clarification from everyone here. Those are the big ones. I think you've also given me quite a bit of food for thought to bring back to council for other topics, particularly the things that we raised for the work plan. So my appreciation.
Great. Thank you, Councillor. Figure I'll just go through. We have a slightly shorter speakers list, but I'll just go through it and see if there's any questions or things. Yeah, I'll start with Kathy Stevenson.
I'm good.
Thank you. Glenn Babcock.
I don't think I really have any questions. I did make a note about the transit core plan to go and read it online. And also something that was shared as part of the meeting materials was the information about the recreation survey, which I hadn't heard about before, but I also plan to go on and do that recreation survey tonight. So
thank you. Oh yeah, so the recreation folks might actually come to a meeting of ours in the future and do like a little engagement session, because I asked them to, because I think they're great. I like the rec people, I know them pretty well. So oh, that's a great question. Can Kathy in the chat just said, can we get an email when the plan is online? I was actually thinking that too. I assume you mean the pedestrian pathways through construction sites report. Yeah, so if someone can just let us know and notify us when that report is online, I would love to read it also.
I would imagine, well, so normally I will wind up sharing on my social media that the agenda for the upcoming regional council meeting is available, and those are always linked from the agenda.
Okay, cool. Great.
But
okay.
I'm sure,
oh, and then Elizabeth said that
Elizabeth could send an email to everybody just saying that it's available.
Perfect. Yes. Elizabeth just said in the chat that she would do that. Thank you, Elizabeth. Cool. Next on the speakers list is Anne Sinclair.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Jean. I continue to appreciate all that you councillors do. And so thank you, a big general thank you. And also to have it presented to us this way that has to do with what we're doing and the connections and everything. So I really appreciate it. And I feel much more well-informed than I could ever do myself. So thanks.
I hope I didn't forget any major items, but those were all the ones that came to my mind as I was kind of going back through the last 2 months of 12-hour-long meetings.
Yeah, I know.
Cool. Thanks, Anne. Next on the list is Celine Vautour.
All right. Hi. Thanks for mentioning about that bus, but the two buses that, if I had two buses to emphasize as the best opportunities buses, the ones that are always half an hour from each other, they're very, very clustered together, but they actually get you to work sites. The one is bus 3, because like, again, I've been taking buses like crazy for the last while, gig economy. But yeah, bus number 3, really look at that, especially in the morning. I dread it. I actually have to take it tomorrow. I'm already dreading I'm already feeling my body having to stay close together to get through that, because it goes straight to Burnside. You know, it goes from Fairview straight to Burnside. I mean, straight to a job. Same thing with bus 28. There's not enough access from, like, I'm in the West End to get to Bears Lake. There's just none of it. And that's also an opportunities area for employment. So I just wanted to stress on those two things. The other thing that I would like for there be discussion is night bus runs. Like, things close too early. It really, again, back on the safety piece, it's not very easy to get back home if you want to go out. And nightlife is also part of well-being and wellness to be able to go and hang out with your friends. The other thing that came to mind about parking spaces that Uber and taxi drivers are not complying to, what could be a really great motivational threat is that, especially if it's an identifiable vehicle of a taxi company or whatever, that there would be that idea that the enforcement officer would be sending the information plate of who was taking that spot. So they'll hear it from their boss, or like, if you know what I mean, like they're doing it because they're not feeling seen. But if ever there's like a bit of a double down for companies, even like, let's say, even Amazon drivers. So that's just one thing. Thanks for mentioning full board transit, because that's what I was trying to describe earlier. You're better than ChatGPT, Jean. And I think I have nothing. Yeah. Access to universities in mind, by the way, because that was another thing that I've in my journey have realized, like especially people from Cole Harbour sometimes have to go 3-4 hours in one day just to be able to go to university. So that is just something I wanted to make sure that was said, and I am good. Thank you so much for that presentation.
You're very welcome. One
Thanks,
thing I forgot to mention is that the core service plan does include some new routes as well. Now, how much they'll overlap, so that it's a combination of revising existing routes, adding resources to existing routes in order to minimize the number of full buses that will wind up having to pass by, and the addition of some new routes. And some of those new routes do address, in this case, I'm thinking specifically of the number 95 is one of the new proposed routes, and that comes from West Bedford directly into Bayers Lake, because it was recognized as an employment center, and there wasn't a direct route from that end of the municipality to get to Bayers Lake. I only have that one top of mind because that's the district I represent. So there are very likely others that you'll find of interest in the core service plan as well.
There was another question too that I was just curious. Has there ever been talk of like buses that are just strictly like terminal to terminal? Like they don't do bus stops. It's like if you're at Terminal Mumford, it's going to take you straight to the bridge terminal. And vice versa, even Cole Harbour, having bridge terminals straight to a terminal in Cole Harbour could cut a whole lot of time for people that are really on outskirts trying to get to the university.
I've not heard of things that are entirely terminal to terminal, but there's certainly a few express routes that go from a sort of a cluster of stops and then skip over a big chunk of the city in order to get to another cluster of stops somewhere further away. That's a step in that particular direction. It seems to be working fairly well. I don't know that there's too many express routes that don't wind up touching the suburban areas, because I think that's mostly what they're meant to address. So that they don't take, you get on and there's not 100 stops between you and downtown. There's instead more like 20. But I think that's something that our new transit director would certainly be looking at. I mean, he's actively taking transit himself, and they're going out and talking to transit users. They've done some pop-ups in a couple of strategic locations around the municipality for months now, trying to get feedback from users. And non-users alike, because the reality is they are trying to address the factors that are barriers to people using transit as well. And so that data measurement is an awfully important part of how they're going to be able to change the transit system for the better in the municipality.
Sorry to also mention recreation piece, because the biggest thing right now, and it's my biggest dream, because the only motivation I want a car right now is to drive my kid to the beach. But like, if ever there's like some sort of bus that is a recreational feature, I know this sounds very complex to even suggest, but it's just on fact that there's so many beaches that a lot of us don't get to access.
Good thought.
Thank you. Great. Next on the list is Oliver Keith.
Nope, no, nothing else to add, but honestly, excellent summary. It was really great to listen to. I really appreciate the time. Thanks, John.
Thanks.
Thanks, Oliver. Yeah, I mean, it's my turn now. Echoing thanks. It's nice to see that there is a lot of like transit related stuff happening, because that is going to probably be one of our work plan factors. So nice to know that we're kind of all on the same page in the sense of like what we need to see next in our municipality to an extent. So that is really good. Yeah, I actually don't think I have any other questions myself. I feel like, yeah, I really just wanted the update. We got the update. I'm really happy about it. So thank you for providing that. Yeah. And then if there are, I should also mention, if there are specific things that the committee would like updates on, please let Elizabeth know, and then we can let the counselors know for following meetings, so that we are getting the information that we want. So that's a little homework, if you will.
And I mean, the other thing worth mentioning is that, all of us know people in the community, right? And so, I'll remind everyone that one of the things that we have the capacity to do is if you're speaking with somebody and they have a particular concern around accessibility, they can email clerks@halifax.ca and specifically ask for their email to be distributed to members of AAC, and therefore not only or to all of council. But that's the way that you can ensure that the community feels like they have a direct conduit to all of council. I mean, we are a very accessible bunch. Obviously the pun isn't intended, but everyone can get to us. I mean, our phone numbers are on the website. They're not reaching staff, they're reaching us. And so, anytime that they want to ensure that we're aware of what their particular issue is, no matter how big or how small, emailing clerks is the general correspondence way to ensure that that information is circulated to the members of council. And if they so choose, they can have it specifically circulated to members of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, particularly recognizing that you're not on the council distribution list. So this would give us an opportunity to make sure that you're aware of correspondence that's coming in that pertains to this group.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, that is everything on our agenda. The next meeting is on April 20th, 2026. We'll have another council update then. We'll see what it's about. We might have the HRMP or the everyone's an HRM person, the rec people in then. I don't remember when they're doing their thing, but no promises, maybe in May. But I did say that I hope for them to come in and do a little engagement session with us. So look forward to that. And we'll talk more about our work plan then, based on what we see, all summarized in a nice format for next month. So I need only a mover for adjournment. If anyone would like to move to adjourn us, I see Jean Saint-Amand. Thank you. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Great meeting. Yeah, thank you. This is such a good, I feel like this was one of our best meetings.
I was going to say my dog has been making the motion to adjourn for the last 5 minutes.
As it goes. Yeah. Cool. Thanks, everyone. Have a good